The most dangerous enemy is not the one in front of you, it is the one you underestimated. Power is not only about strength, wealth, or cunning. It is also about perception, about reading the terrain of human character and adjusting your moves accordingly. Law 19 warns us, never assume all people react the same way. Some will forgive insults, others will brood for years. Some will fight openly, others will strike from the shadows. To offend the wrong person is to awaken a force you cannot control. Human beings are not uniform. They are a mosaic of egos, temperaments, traumas, and ambitions. The strategist who treats everyone the same way will eventually offend someone whose response he cannot endure. One rival shrugs off humiliation. Another dedicates his life to revenge. One ally tolerates neglect. Another will betray you for a single slight. Law 19 forces you to abandon naivety. You must study those around you as if they were weapons, some blunt, some sharp, some concealed. Handle them wrong, and they cut you. Why is this law vital? Because most defeats in power games are not caused by superior strength, but by misjudgment of character. You misread pride, underestimate insecurity, mock the humorless, dismiss the vindictive. What begins as a small offense, a joke, a snub, a careless remark, spirals into vendettas, conspiracies, and ruin. History is filled with rulers who lost empires not to armies, but to offended individuals. Kings mocked advisors who later plotted regicide. CEOs ignored fragile egos who then sabotaged deals. Generals dismissed subordinates whose grudges festered into mutiny. The battlefield of ego is as dangerous as the battlefield of war. Psychologically, this law rests on the volatility of pride. Ego is the most sensitive substance in human nature. Touch it wrong, and it explodes. Offend someone with resources, intelligence, or patience, and you may create your own destroyer. Strategically, the danger lies in underestimation. The man you offend may appear weak today, but in 10 years, his strength may eclipse yours, and his memory will still burn. The wise strategist studies people relentlessly. He identifies the insecure, the vain, the unpredictable. He notes who forgives easily and who never forgets. He adjusts his actions, tailoring his behavior to the vulnerabilities of each character. He avoids unnecessary slights, diffuses potential grudges, and strikes only when he is certain the opponent cannot rise again. This law is not about cowardice. It is not about avoiding offense at all costs. It is about precision. Offend only when it is useful, and only those who cannot harm you. Mock the powerless if it strengthens your image, but never mock the vindictive who waits for revenge. Offense can be a weapon, but only if aimed wisely. In this chapter, we will explore the story of a leader destroyed by a single offense to the wrong man. We will dissect the psychology of ego, vengeance, and pride. We will analyze secondary examples of rulers, politicians, and businessmen who thrived or perished, depending on how well they read character. We will examine the beginner mistakes of reckless offense and blind insults. Finally, we will arm you with tactics, how to read people, how to identify dangerous personalities, and how to navigate the minefield of ego without triggering your own destruction. Because in power, strength alone is never enough. You must know who you're dealing with. Offend the wrong person, and all your walls, armies, and riches will not save you. Main historical example. Few stories illustrate the fatal cost of offending the wrong man as vividly as that of Commodus, Emperor of Rome. His reign, from 180 to 192 CE, ended not with the collapse of armies or foreign invasion, but with his own assassination, plotted by those he underestimated and offended. Commodus believed himself untouchable, but he never mastered the art of reading character. His arrogance created enemies where none were necessary, and one by one they conspired to destroy him. Commodus inherited an empire from his father, Marcus Aurelius, one of Rome's most respected emperors. Where Marcus was disciplined, philosophical, and restrained, Commodus was reckless, vain, and cruel. He relished spectacle, fighting as a gladiator in the arena, and demanded to be worshipped as a god. But more dangerous than his eccentricity was his blindness to character. He mocked, humiliated, and offended powerful men and women who could not forget the insults. One of his gravest mistakes was his treatment of the Senate. Commodus openly derided senators, stripping them of dignity in public. He would insult them at banquets, force them to watch him fight in the Colosseum, and dismiss their traditions as worthless. The Senate, once a loyal partner to the throne, became a seething nest of hatred. Commodus believed their anger harmless. In truth, it was festering revenge. He also offended his closest advisors. When generals or prefects grew too popular, he accused them of treason and executed them. Those who remained learned to flatter but secretly despised him. Among them was Cleander, his chamberlain, who manipulated appointments and grew powerful through corruption. Commodus tolerated him until whispers of scandal forced his execution. Each time, Commodus alienated those who could have protected him, leaving himself increasingly isolated. But the fatal offense came closer to home, with his mistress Marcia and his chamberlain Latus. Commodus, drunk with power, planned to massacre senators and nobles on New Year's Day, 193 CE. He even included Marcia and Latus on a secret execution list. When the list was discovered, the insult was personal and unforgivable. Commodus had underestimated their pride, believing they would never dare strike against him. Instead, they struck first. On the night of December 31st, 1920 CE, Marcia poisoned his wine. When that failed to kill him quickly, Latus sent the wrestler Narcissus into his chambers. Commodus, once emperor of the known world, was strangled to death in his bath by the very people he had mocked and offended. His fall was not caused by foreign armies or famine. It was caused by the reckless insults of a man who never grasped Law 19. He treated others as if their pride and dignity did not matter. He underestimated the Senate, offended advisors, and humiliated allies. In his arrogance, he forgot that even the weak can be deadly when their ego is wounded. The lesson of Commodus is brutal but clear. Power is not destroyed only by open enemies. It is destroyed by offended egos in your own circle. A single slight, a careless humiliation, can plant the seed of conspiracy. Commodus believed he could mock anyone without consequence. Instead, he proved that to offend the wrong person is to sign your own death warrant. Psychological, strategic mechanism. At the heart of Law 19 lies one of the most volatile forces in human nature: ego. Power is not only about armies, wealth, or titles, it is about perception, pride, and identity. To understand why offending the wrong person is so dangerous, we must examine how pride shapes behavior and why insults ignite vendettas that logic cannot extinguish. The first mechanism is ego as survival. To the human mind, pride is not a luxury. It is survival. An insult feels like a threat to existence. Neuroscience shows that humiliation activates the same neural pathways as physical pain. When someone feels mocked, dismissed, or diminished, their brain reacts as if wounded. They seek relief, and often the only relief is revenge. When you offend the wrong person, you are not dealing with rational strategy. You are dealing with survival instinct. The second mechanism is status sensitivity. Humans are hierarchical by nature. Every person carries an internal measure of where they stand in rank. When that rank is challenged, through insult, neglect, or humiliation, rage follows. Some tolerate it better than others, but certain individuals, especially the insecure and the ambitious, react violently. Offend a man obsessed with status, and he will sacrifice years, fortunes, even his life to restore his pride. Another mechanism is the long memory of resentment. Gratitude fades quickly. Resentment endures. Studies in psychology confirm that negative experiences imprint more deeply than positive ones. A kindness may be forgotten in months. A humiliation may burn for decades. This is why offending the wrong person is so perilous. You may forget the slight, but they will not. They will nurture it, water it, and one day harvest it in your ruin. Strategically, insults are dangerous because they create unpredictable enemies. A rival you crush openly is visible. You can measure his power, anticipate his response. But a rival you offend silently may retreat, mask his anger, and strike when you least expect it. Hidden vendettas are more dangerous than open wars. Offense breeds shadows. Another key mechanism is identity fusion. Some individuals merge their ego with their role, title, or cause. To offend their identity is to attack their very essence. A general mocked for cowardice, a CEO dismissed as incompetent, a revolutionary leader ridiculed. Such insults cut deeper than physical wounds. These people cannot rest until vengeance is achieved because their self-image demands restoration. There is also the multiplier effect of power plus pride. Offending a powerless man may be safe. His reach is limited. But offending someone with resources, networks, or intelligence transforms ego into a weapon. The combination of wounded pride and real capacity is lethal. Commodus underestimated Marcia and Latus because he assumed they were dependent on him. Their pride, once wounded, transformed their proximity into his death sentence. Psychologically, offense also triggers rumination. Unlike gratitude, which dissipates, humiliation is replayed endlessly in the mind. Each replay intensifies anger. Offended individuals exaggerate the insult, constructing narratives of betrayal. What you thought was a small remark becomes, in their mind, a monumental act of disrespect. This rumination keeps the wound fresh, ensuring revenge remains inevitable. Another factor is social contagion. Offended individuals often share their grievances, rallying others to their cause. An insult rarely stays private. Humiliated generals whisper among troops, slighted employees spread discontent, mocked courtiers conspire with rivals. One offense can multiply into collective resentment, escalating a personal grudge into a movement. Strategically, this law underscores the danger of uniform treatment. Many beginners assume all people are alike, that they can joke, criticize, or dismiss without consequence. In reality, personalities vary wildly. Some are forgiving, others vindictive. Some are insecure, others indifferent. The master strategist tailors his behavior, identifying who can be teased, who must be respected, and who must be avoided altogether. Finally, the mechanism of ego-driven revenge explains why offending the wrong person is fatal. Rational strategy asks, will this act benefit me? Ego-driven revenge asks, will this act restore my pride? The latter often overrides logic. People will destroy themselves financially, politically, or even physically to punish those who insulted them. This is why offending the wrong person can lead to outcomes wildly disproportionate to the insult. In essence, Law 19 teaches that ego is dynamite. Gratitude is fleeting, but humiliation is permanent. Offense transforms ordinary men into conspirators, allies into enemies, weaklings into assassins. The wise strategist studies pride with the same attention as armies and resources. He offends only when necessary, only those who cannot retaliate, and never those whose ego, once provoked, could destroy him. Secondary examples. One of the clearest illustrations of this law in modern politics comes from Winston Churchill during World War II. Churchill understood that Joseph Stalin's ego was both fragile and dangerous. Unlike many Western leaders who treated Stalin as an equal or attempted to lecture him, Churchill carefully adjusted his tone. He never mocked Stalin's paranoia or pride, knowing that even a small slight could rupture the alliance. Franklin Roosevelt sometimes underestimated this dynamic, but Churchill's caution helped keep a volatile partner engaged in the common cause. He knew exactly who he was dealing with. Contrast that with John F. Kennedy's early dealings with Nikita Khrushchev. In their 1961 Vienna summit, Kennedy's uncertain performance gave Khrushchev the impression that the young president was weak and naive. Later, when Kennedy tried to assert himself, Khrushchev took offense, reading it as posturing. This misreading of personality escalated tensions and contributed directly to the Cuban Missile Crisis. Kennedy learned the hard way that misjudging ego can push the world to the brink of war. In the business world, Steve Jobs exemplified both mastery and failure of this law. He was often ruthless in criticism, humiliating employees publicly. Many tolerated it because they revered his vision, but occasionally he underestimated the wrong person. Several key engineers left Apple in the 1980s, not simply for better opportunities, but because they felt personally disrespected. Their departures weakened Apple at a critical moment. Jobs later matured, learning to direct his fire more strategically, reserving harshness for those who could endure it and praise for those whose egos required it. Another striking case is Lyndon B. Johnson, U.S. President after Kennedy. Johnson had a gift for reading character. He could sense who required flattery, who responded to intimidation, and who would never forgive a slight. His Johnson treatment was legendary. He would adjust his entire approach depending on the person. He knew who could be pushed and who must be placated. His mastery of this law enabled him to pass monumental legislation like the Civil Rights Act. But failures are more instructive. Joseph Fouché, Napoleon's feared minister of police, was once dismissed and humiliated by the emperor. Napoleon underestimated Fouché's cunning and ego. Though outwardly compliant, Fouché nursed his resentment. When Napoleon's fortunes declined, Fouché conspired with enemies, betraying his master. The emperor, undone not only by foreign coalitions, but also by those he had offended at home, paid the price for forgetting this law. In literature and theatre, we see echoes of this principle. Shakespeare's Othello turns on the manipulations of Iago, a man offended by being overlooked for promotion. His wounded pride drives him to destroy Othello completely. It is not armies that topple the general, but the ego of one offended subordinate. Fiction echoes reality because it is rooted in timeless psychology. These cases confirm a consistent truth. Power is never exercised in a vacuum. It lives in egos, and egos are volatile. Churchill survived because he respected Stalin's pride. Kennedy nearly lost the world by misreading Khrushchev. Jobs weakened Apple by insulting the wrong engineers. Napoleon fell, in part, because he underestimated Fouché. and Shakespeare's tragedies remind us that the smallest offense can birth the deadliest betrayal. The lesson is brutal. Study character as carefully as strategy. Every person you deal with carries a pride that can either be harnessed or explode against you. Offend the wrong one, and you will pay far more than the insult was worth. Beginner mistakes. The game of power is littered with corpses of the careless, those who offended the wrong person without realizing it. Beginners stumble here more often than anywhere else because they underestimate ego, misjudge temperament, and act as if everyone responds the same way. These mistakes are predictable, repeated, and fatal. The first mistake is treating all people equally. Beginners assume a uniform approach works with everyone, joking with the serious, criticizing the vain, ignoring the insecure. But people are not uniform. Some tolerate bluntness, others seethe at the smallest slight. By failing to study character, the beginner walks blindly through a minefield of egos, detonating enemies unintentionally. The second mistake is public humiliation. Many novices believe showing dominance in public strengthens their authority. They scold subordinates in meetings, mock rivals openly, or belittle allies in front of peers. What they fail to see is that humiliation burns deeper than defeat. A man defeated may recover and respect strength. A man humiliated never forgets. Public shame breeds secret revenge, often far deadlier than open conflict. Another error is careless joking. Humor is sharp when used against the right target, but dangerous when misapplied. Beginners joke about a superior's weakness, a colleague's insecurity, or a rival's failure, thinking it harmless. Yet insults disguised as jokes often cut the deepest. The victim smiles outwardly, but bleeds inwardly. The beginner laughs, unaware he has just created a lifelong enemy. The fourth mistake is underestimating the quiet ones. Beginners often focus on loud, aggressive personalities, believing they are the most dangerous. They overlook the silent, the reserved, the watchful, yet it is often the quiet ones who brood longest, plotting revenge in shadows. Commodus mocked senators who said little, only to be destroyed by the silent resentment he had planted. Beginners forget that silence is not weakness, it is camouflage. A fifth mistake is assuming forgiveness. Beginners believe that once an apology is given, the wound is closed. They underestimate how long resentment festers. An apology may soothe the surface, but rarely erases the memory. Offended pride stores insults like weapons, waiting for the right moment to strike. Gratitude fades quickly. Resentment endures. Another fatal flaw is challenging ego without preparation. Some novices try to assert dominance by provoking powerful figures, thinking it shows courage. In reality, it shows stupidity. Offending a person with greater resources, influence, or patience is suicide. The wise strike only when they can destroy. The beginner strikes blindly, and the blow returns tenfold. The seventh mistake is projecting one's own tolerance onto others. Some individuals shrug off insults easily and assume others do the same. They cannot imagine someone dedicating years to revenge for a single slight. This blindness leads them to mock the vindictive, dismiss the insecure, and provoke the proud, never realizing how much danger they create by assuming others think like them. Another error is neglecting subordinates. Beginners believe only superiors deserve respect. They treat those beneath them with contempt, forgetting that subordinates often have access, proximity, and opportunity. Many rulers have been undone, not by rivals above, but by servants below. Poisoned food, whispered betrayal, or a dagger in the dark. Offending those you deem powerless is often the deadliest mistake. The ninth mistake is emotional outbursts. Beginners let anger dictate their words, insulting others impulsively. Later, they forget the moment, but the target remembers. Anger passes quickly. Humiliation lingers forever. A single heated remark can undo years of trust and loyalty. Masters control their tongue. Beginners wield it like a weapon without realizing it is double-edged. Finally, the most dangerous mistake is using offense as a casual tool. Offense can be a weapon, but only in skilled hands. It can break morale, destabilize rivals, or assert dominance if directed at those who cannot retaliate. Beginners use it indiscriminately, throwing insults around like sparks in a dry forest. Eventually, one lands in the wrong place and burns everything down. The pattern of beginner failure is clear. They treat people uniformly, humiliate publicly, joke carelessly, underestimate the quiet, assume forgiveness, challenge without strength, project tolerance, neglect subordinates, lash out emotionally, and offend casually. Each mistake plants enemies like seeds, which grow into vendettas. The master, by contrast, is cautious. He studies character, respects fragile egos, and offends only when useful and safe. He knows that pride is more explosive than armies, more enduring than money, and more dangerous than open war. The beginner insults by accident and dies by conspiracy. The master avoids offense, or uses it as a scalpel, never as a hammer. Actionable tactics. If offending the wrong person is fatal, how can you avoid it without becoming paralyzed by fear? The key is not to tiptoe around everyone, but to read character with precision and act with strategic intent. Power comes not from avoiding offense altogether, but from offending selectively, only those who cannot strike back. The following tactics will help you navigate the minefield of ego and survive the dangerous game of pride. The first tactic is profile everyone. Treat each person you deal with as a unique map of pride, insecurity, and temperament. Observe how they respond to criticism, how they handle loss, how they treat others. Do they laugh at themselves, or do they bristle at the smallest joke? Keep mental notes. Over time, you will know who forgives, who forgets, and who never lets go. Second, master the ego test. Drop a harmless remark that touches on status, something light, even humorous. Watch their reaction. If they laugh genuinely, they are resilient. If they stiffen, change the subject, or retaliate, you've located a fragile ego. This small test can save you from larger mistakes later. Third, apply respect as currency. With those you identify as insecure or dangerous, pay small tributes of respect. Praise them in public, acknowledge their contributions, or let them feel important. These gestures cost you little, but prevent their resentment. Respect is cheaper than dealing with vengeance. Fourth, use selective offense. Offending can be powerful when directed at safe targets: the powerless, the irrelevant, the weak. Insults here demonstrate dominance and sharpen your reputation. But never aim offense at the proud, the vindictive, or the patient. Choose targets carefully, as you would with a weapon. Fifth, practice strategic flattery. Flattery is not weakness if applied with intent. The proud crave recognition. By feeding their ego selectively, you can disarm hostility. Even dangerous personalities can be neutralized if their pride is stroked. The art lies in subtlety. Flattery must feel natural, not forced. Sixth, deploy the disguise of indifference. When offense is inevitable, mask it as accident. Let people believe they misinterpreted your words or that no insult was intended. This preserves their dignity, giving them a face-saving exit. Often, avoiding open acknowledgement of offense is enough to diffuse vendettas. Seventh, maintain multiple escape routes. Even when dealing with fragile egos, build redundancies. If one ally turns into an enemy due to unintended offense, you should have others to balance them. Never rely on a single relationship. Networks cushion you against offended individuals who might otherwise become existential threats. Eighth, master reputation as shield. If your overall reputation is one of fairness, strength, and consistency, small offenses will be overlooked. But if you are known for cruelty or arrogance, every slight will be magnified. Guard your reputation as carefully as your resources. It determines how offenses are perceived. Ninth, use information triangulation. People rarely reveal their true pride points directly. Learn through third parties, friends, rivals, colleagues, where someone's sensitivities lie. If you hear that a general cannot tolerate jokes about cowardice or that a CEO despises reminders of failure, you have gained ammunition to avoid or exploit them. 10th, apply the balance of fear and respect. Sometimes, avoiding offense entirely makes you look weak. Dangerous personalities must respect your strength. Balance respect with controlled intimidation. Let them know you can harm them, but choose not to. This mix ensures they fear you enough not to test you, while respecting you enough not to resent you. 11th, cultivate forgiveness. Illusions. If you must offend someone, pair it with gestures of reconciliation. Give them a symbolic win, a concession, or a token of respect. Allow them to believe the insult is forgotten, even if you never withdraw it. Offended egos crave restoration. Give them enough to pacify without weakening your position. 12th, learn when to walk away. Some personalities are too dangerous to engage. The perpetually insecure, the vindictive, the obsessive. These individuals are landmines. Avoid provoking them, but also avoid entangling yourself with them. Distance is safer than constant risk management. 13th, deploy reverse offense. Sometimes you can disarm pride by allowing others to offend you lightly, then responding with grace. By showing that you are not easily rattled, you invert the power dynamic. Others begin to fear offending you seriously, knowing you are capable of restraint and magnanimity. 14th, practice historical awareness. Study the personal histories of those you deal with. Childhood traumas, career humiliations, family rivalries. These shape their sensitivities. An insult tied to an old wound will cut deeper than a generic slight. Knowledge of history gives you both weapons to avoid and weapons to exploit. Finally, the 15th tactic. Weaponize offense deliberately. Offense is not always a mistake. It can be strategy. When you know someone is fragile and powerless, a calculated insult can destabilize them, pushing them into errors that reveal their weakness. But this must only be used against those who cannot retaliate. Against the wrong person, it is suicide. Against the right one, it is domination. Together, these tactics ensure you never walk blindly into the trap of wounded pride. They teach you to profile, test, respect, flatter, disguise, and disarm. They remind you that ego is the most dangerous battlefield in power. Offend selectively, strategically, and only when safe. Above all, never forget, the wrong insult to the wrong person can undo years of strength in a single night. Conclusion. Power is not lost only through defeat in battle or collapse of resources. More often, it is lost through ego. The ego you offend, the pride you underestimate, the character you misread. Law 19 is a reminder that every person you encounter is a potential weapon, and the sharpest weapons are often disguised as ordinary men and women. The human mind is built for survival, and pride is its armor. When you offend the wrong person, you pierce that armor. The wound festers, and vengeance becomes their purpose. Gratitude fades, but humiliation endures. A careless joke, a public slight, a casual dismissal, these ignite vendettas that last years, sometimes decades. History's bloodiest betrayals often began with small offenses. Commodus mocked senators and offended his own mistress. He died strangled in his bath. Napoleon humiliated Fouché, who later betrayed him. CEOs have destroyed their companies by ridiculing fragile but capable subordinates. Politicians have fallen not to great enemies, but to offended allies who felt disrespected. Again and again, we see the same pattern. Arrogance blinds, offense poisons, and revenge destroys. The lesson is not to live in fear, but to live with awareness. Power demands that you read character as carefully as maps or ledgers. Study temperaments, test egos, and adjust your behavior. Offend only when offense is useful, and only those who cannot rise again. Precision is strength. Carelessness is suicide. The brutal truth is this: the wrong offense to the wrong person can unravel everything you've built. A single insult can outweigh years of alliances. A single humiliation can ignite the flame of your destruction. The wise strategist never forgets this law. Power is not only in your hands, it is in the minds of those around you. And if their pride turns against you, no fortress, army, or wealth will protect you. If this breakdown sharpened your instincts, subscribe now. Because here, we dissect power as it truly is, not as people wish it to be. Next time, we'll explore Law 20, why committing to no one makes you untouchable, and how alliances can become traps. Don't miss it.